I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my knuckles white. Across from me, my son, Dominic, wouldn't meet my eyes. He just held his hand out, waiting. I pulled the envelope from my back pocket. It was the first of the month. I placed it in his palm. $3,800, my entire pension. Thanks, Dad, he mumbled, already turning away to hand it to his wife. Talia snatched the envelope. She didn't say thank you. She just started talking as if I wasn't there. Dominic, the HOA bill is late again, and Kira's school trip needs to be paid for by Friday. Did you even ask him about that? Talia, come on, Dominic started. Ask me about what? I said, my voice rougher than I intended. Talia turned to me, her smile as thin as a razor wire. Elias, Kira has a field trip. It's only $75. Since you're not contributing to the mortgage, we thought you could cover these little extras. I'm not contributing? I pointed at the envelope in her hand. What do you call that? That's my entire pension. 40 years of driving a city bus, all in your hand. That's for the household, Elias, she said, her voice dripping with fake patience. Groceries, utilities, the basics. It doesn't cover extras, or the mortgage. This is Dominic's house, after all. My house. The one I paid for in cash from the sale of my first home and my retirement buyout. The one I put in Dominic's name to give him a head start. To protect him. I see, I said. I turned to the coffee pot, my hands shaking just slightly. Oh, and Elias, she called out, her voice sharp again. Could you please keep your bedroom door closed? That musty smell is starting to drift into the hallway. And the volume on your television last night. It was shaking the walls. I have a migraine. I poured my coffee, black. I didn't answer. I just walked past her, past my son who was staring at his phone, and went to my room. I closed the door. The click of the latch felt like a prison cell locking. I sat on the edge of my bed, the bed I'd shared with my Alara, and looked at her picture on my nightstand. What did I do wrong, Alara? I whispered to the smiling photo. What did I do to deserve this? The house was silent, except for the distant sound of Talia laughing at something on her own phone in the kitchen. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a few crumpled bills. $27. All I had to my name until my sister, Clarissa, loaned me lunch money. I looked at my old transit operator's uniform, hanging in a frame on the wall. A lifetime of work, and I was a beggar in my own home. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. A few days later, I decided I had to try. I couldn't live like this, like a ghost in my own hallways. I had to bridge the gap. For Dominic. For the grandkids. I went to the grocery store, using the emergency $100 bill I kept hidden in my shoe. I bought ground beef, kidney beans, tomatoes, onions, and the special packet of chili spice that my Alara had perfected. Her signature chili. It was the one thing that always brought the family together. I spent the afternoon in the kitchen. I browned the meat. I chopped the vegetables. I let it simmer for hours, the rich smell filling the house. It was the smell of Sunday dinners, of laughter, of Alara humming as she stirred. For a few hours, the house felt like mine again. My grandkids, Damien and Kira, burst in from school. "Grandpa," Kira yelled, running to the pot. "Are you making Grandma Alara's chili? It smells so good." "I sure am, sweetheart," I said, lifting her up. "It'll be ready for dinner." Damien, older and quieter, just watched me, a small smile on his face. "It smells just like I remember." I felt a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. This would work. Food fixes things. That evening, I set the table. I served everyone a big bowl. Damien and Kira dug in immediately, their faces bright. "This is the best, Grandpa," Damien said around a mouthful. I watched Dominic. He took a bite, nodded, and kept eating, a small victory. Then, Talia. She slowly dipped her spoon in, raised it to her lips, and took the smallest taste. Her face wrinkled as if she'd just licked a lemon. She pushed the bowl away, the sound of the ceramic scraping on the placemat loud in the sudden silence. "What's wrong, honey?" Dominic asked, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. "It's just so greasy, Dominic," Talia said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Elias, I know you mean well, but this heavy, old-fashioned food, it's just not healthy. The kids are going to have stomach aches." Damien and Kira both stopped eating, looking at their mother. "It's fine, Mom," Damien said. "No, it's not," Talia snapped. She turned to me, her eyes cold. "Elias, we've been meaning to talk to you. This just proves it. You'd be so much more comfortable living with people your own age. My mother, Brenda, was just saying—" "What?" I set my spoon down. "Your sister, Clarissa," Talia pushed on, ignoring my question. "She's all alone, isn't she? You two could keep each other company. It's too noisy here for you, with the kids. And frankly, they need more space." Dominic cleared his throat, finally looking at me. "Dad, she has a point. Damien's getting older. He needs a proper desk. Your room, it's the biggest one on the main floor. It's kind of wasted on just you." "Wasted. My room. The master suite I chose when I bought the house." Talia smiled, seeing her opening. "Exactly. Damien could have a real teen room, and you'd be so much happier at Clarissa's. We could drive you over this weekend to see it." I looked at the bowl of chili I had cooked with so much hope. I looked at my son, who was now picking at his food, unable to look at me. I looked at Talia, who was already mentally measuring my room for new furniture. I stood up. I didn't say a word. I just walked out of the dining room, down the hall to my bedroom, and locked the door. I didn't come out for the rest of the night. The next afternoon, I was outside. It was the only place I felt any peace. I was on my knees by the side of the house, tending to Alara's roses. She had loved these red roses. I'd planted them for her the week we moved in. Tending them felt like the only promise I'd managed to keep. I was trimming a dead branch, the scent of the blooms thick in the air, when I heard Talia's voice. The kitchen window was open. She was on the phone. "I know, Carla, I know. I'm working on it," she was saying. Her voice was different, harder. This was the real Talia. I froze, my shears hovering over a branch. I stayed low, shielded by the bushes. "He's just so stubborn," Talia griped. "I laid it all out for him last night. How much happier he'd be at Clarissa's. How Dominic and I are just so worried about him being around the kids' noise." A pause. She laughed. "Oh God, no. Dominic is useless. He's terrified of his own father. I have to handle everything. I'm telling him it's for the kids, that Damien needs the space. He's slowly coming around." My stomach turned to ice. She was working on him, manipulating him. "You should see the room, Carla," Talia went on, her voice suddenly bright with excitement. "It's huge. Hardwood floors, its own bathroom. I'm going to have custom shelving put in, floor to ceiling, a makeup vanity by the window. It's going to be my dream walk-in closet. Finally." I dropped the shears. They hit the soft dirt with a dull thud. "What was that?" "Hold on." I held my breath. I heard her steps approach the window, then move away. Just the wind, she said, her voice lower now. Anyway, the best part is, my mom can finally move in. I'll give her Kira's room, and Kira can move into Damien's old room. It's perfect. Brenda gets to be with us, and the old man is finally out of my hair. He's served his purpose. He got us the house. Now he can go bother his sister. I squeezed a handful of dirt until my knuckles ached. He served his purpose. I stayed there, kneeling in the dirt, for a long time after she hung up. The sun beat down on my back, but I was cold. Ice cold. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a generational gap. This was a plan. A cold, calculated plan to throw me out of the house I paid for so she could have a closet and move her own mother in. And my son was letting her do it. My first thought wasn't a lawyer. It was family. It was Clarissa, my sister. She'd know what to do. I went back to my room, my hands still caked with dirt. I locked the door and dialed her number. My fingers were trembling so hard I had to press the numbers twice. Elias? Is everything okay? Her voice was always sharp, always alert. Clarissa, I need help. I told her everything. I told her about the pension, the daily insults, the chili, and what I had just overheard in the garden. The plan, the closet, Brenda Stone. There was a dead silence on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and dangerous. That venomous little, "I'm coming over, right now. I'm going to talk to Dominic. I'm going to straighten my nephew out." "Be careful, Clarissa," I warned. She controls him. He's still my nephew. He's still your son. He's not going to listen to that woman over his own family. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up. I sat on my bed, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Clarissa was a force of nature. She wouldn't let this happen. This was the solution. Family would solve this. I waited. I heard the doorbell ring. I heard Talia's voice, sickly sweet. "Clarissa, what a surprise. Dominic's not home from work yet." "I'll wait," I heard Clarissa say, her voice firm. I heard the door close. I cracked my door open, just enough to listen. They were in the living room. "So what brings you by?" Talia asked, all fake politeness. "I came to talk to my nephew about my brother," Clarissa said, all business. "About how you're treating him." Talia's laugh was a short, sharp bark. "Oh, Clarissa, I'm so glad you're here. We've been so worried about Elias." "Worried? You're worried?" "Desperately," Talia said, and her voice was a masterpiece of fake concern. "He's been confused lately, forgetting things. He told me the other day he thought he paid for this house. Can you imagine? He's getting names mixed up. He's paranoid. He thinks we're trying to kick him out." "You are trying to kick him out," Clarissa shot back. "Clarissa, please, lower your voice." "You'll upset him," Talia said, her voice dripping with pity. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. This paranoia. We think he's developing dementia. We're trying to figure out the best place for him, for his own safety. We thought you'd be the perfect person. He loves you so much." My blood ran cold. She was painting me as senile. "You're a liar," Clarissa said, her voice shaking with rage. "And you're a meddler," Talia snapped, her mask dropping completely. "This is my house, my husband's house. Elias is a guest here, and his presence is becoming disruptive. Dominic and I will handle his care. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to pick up my children. You can see yourself out." I heard footsteps. The front door opened and slammed shut. My phone rang. It was Clarissa. I picked it up. Elias, she said, and her voice was defeated. She's a monster. She wouldn't let me wait for Dominic. She told me you were senile. She said I was a meddler and kicked me out. She has him completely wrapped around her finger. That boy is gone. Elias, I don't think I can help you. She's blocked me. She's blocked everyone. The hope I'd felt collapsed into a black pit. The false lead was a dead end. Family couldn't fix this. I was on my own. It's okay, Clarissa, I said, my voice hollow. You tried. Thanks for trying. I hung up the phone. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my sanity. She wasn't just going to kick me out. She was going to erase me, paint me as a crazy old man to justify it. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't senile. I wasn't confused. And I wasn't going to let her win. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd have to get my hands dirty too. The next morning, I took the bus to an electronics store. I used the last of my emergency cash to buy a small digital voice recorder. It was no bigger than my thumb. The kid at the counter showed me how to use it. 1 click to start, 1 click to stop. Simple. I went back home. Talia was in the kitchen, humming as she unloaded the dishwasher. She smiled at me. Good morning, Elias. Did you have a nice walk? I just nodded. Morning, Talia. I went to my room and sat on the bed. I clicked the button. A tiny red light blinked, then went dark. It was on. I slipped it into the breast pocket of my shirt. I spent the rest of the day just existing. I sat in the living room, pretending to read the paper. I listened. I waited. Talia and Dominic were quiet. They were on their best behavior, probably because they thought Clarissa might be spying, or that I was fragile. They were treating me like glass, which was almost worse than the insults. The break came 2 days later. Talia's mother, Brenda Stone, came over for dinner. I sat at the table picking at my food, the recorder humming silently in my pocket. So, Brenda, Dominic said, trying to make conversation. How are things at the apartment? Oh, you know, Brenda sighed dramatically. The landlord is a nightmare. The neighbors are so loud. I just don't know how much longer I can take it. Talia reached over and patted her mother's hand. Don't you worry, Mom. We're making progress. It won't be long now. Progress? Brenda asked, her eyes lighting up. Talia said, shooting a quick, annoyed glance at me. We had a long talk with Clarissa the other day. I think the family is finally starting to understand that Elias needs a quieter environment for his health. Oh, that's wonderful, Brenda said. I just kept eating, my heart hammering against my ribs. Keep talking. Keep talking. Later, after dinner, I was in my room. I heard them in the hallway, just outside my closed door. They thought I was asleep. Are you sure, Talia? Brenda whispered. He seems dug in. He's an old man, Mom. Talia's voice was sharp, impatient. He'll do what he's told. Dominic is finally on board. He's going to tell Elias this weekend that it's time to make the move to Clarissa's. And the room? It's all yours, Mom. I promise. Don't worry, Mom. The old man will be at Clarissa's by the end of the month. His room is all yours. I clicked the recorder off. I pulled it from my pocket and stared at it. I had it. I had the proof. Her voice, her words, her plan. I wasn't confused. And I wasn't an old man who would just do what he's told. The plan was to wait, to hold on to the recording until Dominic made his move. Then I would confront him, play it for him, and watch his world crumble. But Talia couldn't wait. Her greed was too strong. I came home from my walk to Garland Park 3 days later. The house was quiet. Dominic was at work, the kids at school. I figured Talia was out shopping. I walked down the hall toward my room and stopped dead. The door was wide open, and Talia was inside. She was standing in the middle of my room with a yellow tape measure in one hand and her tablet in the other. She was humming. She didn't even hear me. She stretched the tape measure from one wall to the other. Okay, so that's 12 feet. Perfect. The main shelving unit can go right against that wall. She scribbled on her tablet, then turned and measured the space where my bed, where Ilara's bed, stood. And if we put the vanity here, she murmured to herself, the light from the window will be perfect. The mirrors can go on the closet doors. What are you doing, Talia? My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a gunshot. She yelped and spun around, dropping the tape measure. It clattered to the hardwood floor. She clutched her tablet to her chest. For a second, she looked guilty, but it vanished in a heartbeat, replaced by that cold, hard arrogance. Elias, you startled me, she said, smoothing her shirt. I was just planning some upgrades. Upgrades, I repeated, stepping into the doorway. In my room. In the house, she corrected me, her smile tight. This house is so dated. It needs a refresh. We have to think about resale value, you know. Resale value. I looked at Ilara's picture on my nightstand. I looked at my framed uniform on the wall. And you're starting with my room, while I'm still living in it. She looked me straight in the eye. The mask was gone. There was no fake concern, no pity. Just cold, calculating impatience. She was done pretending. We need to make the best use of the space, Elias, she said. And as we discussed, this house needs to adapt to the needs of the family actually living here. Things are going to be changing very soon. You should probably start packing. She nudged the tape measure with her foot, then bent to pick it up, dismissing me. I'm planning to have the painters in by the 1st of next month, she said, walking past me out of the room. You'll want to have your things moved by then. I stood there, shaking, not with fear, with rage. A pure, clean rage that burned away all the sadness and all the doubt. She wasn't just planning. She was executing. It was time. That night, I locked my door. I sat at my small desk and pulled out the recorder. This was it. I couldn't wait for Dominic. I had to act now. I needed to get this to a lawyer. But first, I needed to keep it safe. Talia was brazen. She had been in my room. She would be again. I looked around. Under the mattress? Too obvious. Taped under the drawer? She might find it. I put the recorder in my old, worn-out work boot, shoved deep in the back of my closet. She'd never look in there. It smelled like... well, it smelled like an old man's boot. She wouldn't touch it. I felt safer, but my heart was still pounding. I needed a shower. I needed to wash her presence, her smell, out of my room. I grabbed my clothes and went to the bathroom. I locked the door and turned the shower on as hot as I could stand it. The steam filled the small room, but it couldn't unknot the tension in my shoulders. I was in there for maybe 10 minutes. When I came out, wrapped in a towel, I knew something was wrong. My bedroom door was open, just a crack. I had locked it. I knew I had locked it. I pushed the door open. The room looked the same, but the air felt different. Talia, she had been in here. She must have one of those little keys for the interior doors, for the kids. I ran to the closet. I threw aside the clothes and grabbed the old work boot. It felt light. I turned it upside down and shook it. Nothing. No. No, 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 I tore the closet apart. I threw shoes, boxes, old sweaters. Nothing. I ran out of my room and down the hall to the kitchen. The trash can was full from dinner. I dumped it on the floor, sifting through coffee grounds and vegetable peels, my hands shaking. It wasn't there. I stood up, breathing hard. Talia was standing in the kitchen doorway, a laundry basket on her hip. She was watching me, a small, knowing smirk on her face. "Looking for something, Elias?" she asked, her voice innocent. "Where is it?" I demanded, my voice a low growl. "Where is what? You're making a huge mess. I just mopped this floor." "The recorder, my recorder. You were in my room. You took it." She feigned a look of confusion. "A recorder? Elias, are you feeling okay? You're not making any sense. You were shouting in the shower. I came to check on you. Your door was unlocked." "You're lying. You took it," I yelled, taking a step toward her. "Calm down," she said, her voice turning sharp. "You're getting agitated. This is exactly what I was telling Clarissa about. Your paranoia. It's getting worse. Maybe you did have a recorder, and maybe you lost it. You lose your keys all the time." She smiled, a cold, victorious smile. "I did see a little piece of junk on your floor when I was tidying up. Looked like a broken toy. I tossed it." "Tossed it where?" "In the trash, which you've just dumped everywhere," she said with a sigh. "But I took that bag out to the curb half an hour ago. Trash day is tomorrow morning. It's long gone, Elias." I stared at her. She had won. She had found my only piece of proof, my only leverage, and destroyed it. She had tidied my room, found the recorder, and immediately gotten rid of it. I was back to square one, my word against hers. The word of a confused, senile old man against the word of the lady of the house. I had lost. I walked back to my room, defeated. The smell of the kitchen garbage was on my hands. Talia's smug laughter echoed in my head. I sat on my bed. She'd won. She'd outsmarted me. I had nothing. I stared at the wall. I thought about Clarissa's small apartment. I thought about packing my bags. I thought about Ilara's roses dying from neglect. Then I stopped. My eyes drifted to the small, dusty laptop on my desk. I hadn't used it in months. The kid at the electronics store. What had he said? "It's digital, man. Comes with a USB cable. You can plug it into your computer. Upload the files, email them, whatever." My heart stopped. I had been so focused on the device that I'd forgotten about the file. I ran to my desk. I turned on the laptop. It took forever to boot up, humming and wheezing. I connected to the neighbor's unsecured Wi-Fi. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type my password. I opened my old, forgotten email account. And there it was. An email I had sent to myself 2 days ago, right after I made the recording. The subject line was just receipt. Attached was one file, audio 001, MP3 aus. I had done it. I had been so paranoid after Clarissa's failed visit that I'd backed it up immediately, just in case. I'd backed it up and then forgotten, my mind so focused on the physical recorder. Talia hadn't destroyed the evidence. She'd just destroyed the container. I grabbed a blank USB drive from my desk drawer. I downloaded the file. I dragged it onto the drive. I clicked eject. I held the small piece of plastic in my hand. It was heavier than a brick. It was my house. It was my dignity. I looked at Ilara's picture. "She didn't get it, my love," I whispered. "She's smart, but she's not smart enough." My rage was gone. It was replaced by something cold and sharp, a plan. Talia thought she'd won. She thought I was a beaten old man. She was about to find out how wrong she was. The next morning, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. I didn't hit snooze. I got out of bed, the house dark and silent. This wasn't the shuffling, quiet routine of the last 3 years. This was a mission. I didn't make noise. I didn't turn on the kitchen lights. I went into my bathroom and showered. I shaved. I took my time, using the hot water until the mirror was thick with steam. I used the good aftershave, the one Alara had given me for our last anniversary. I went to my closet. I pushed past the old sweaters and worn-out pants. At the very back, in a plastic garment bag, was my suit. My best black suit. I had worn this suit exactly twice in my life. The day I married Alara, and the day I buried her. I pulled it out. It was heavy, the wool still crisp. I laid it on the bed. I found a white shirt, still in its plastic. I found the navy blue tie she'd picked out. I got dressed, my movements slow and deliberate. The shirt was stiff. The knot of the tie was unfamiliar, but my hands remembered. I shined my black dress shoes, the ones I hadn't worn since the funeral. When I was done, I stood in front of the full-length mirror on the back of the door. The man looking back at me wasn't the man from yesterday. He wasn't the stooped, humiliated old man begging for scraps in his own kitchen. He wasn't confused Elias. He was Elijah Horton, the man who had driven a city bus for 40 years without a single accident. The man who had raised a son, bought 2 houses, and loved one woman his entire life. I was a man who had been pushed too far. I slipped the small USB drive into my suit pocket. I checked my reflection one last time. "It's over, Talia," I said to the man in the mirror. I walked out of my bedroom, my polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. I didn't look back. I walked straight out the front door and into the pre-dawn darkness. I didn't need breakfast. I was going to see my lawyer. The bus ride downtown felt different. For 40 years, I'd made this trip to work. Today, I was going to war. The city was just waking up. I got off at my old stop and walked 2 blocks to a tall brick building. The brass plaque by the door was old but polished. Thornton and Associates, attorneys at law. The office was on the 3rd floor. I was there at 8 a.m., half an hour before they opened. I waited in the hallway. At 8:30, a woman unlocked the door. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm here to see Mr. Thaddeus Thornton," I said. "I don't have an appointment, but it's urgent. Mr. Thornton doesn't see anyone without—" "Please," I said. "Just tell him Elias Horton is here. Tell him it's about the Cedar Hills house, from 10 years ago." She looked at my suit, at the determination in my eyes. She nodded. "Wait here." A few minutes later, an old man emerged from the back office. He was thinner than I remembered, his white hair like a cloud, but his eyes were just as sharp behind his thick glasses. "Elias? Elias Horton?" Thaddeus Thornton peered at me. "My goodness, it's been a decade. Come in, come in. What on earth brings you here dressed like you're going to a funeral?" "Maybe I am," I said. He led me into his office. It was exactly as I remembered. Floor-to-ceiling books, the smell of old paper and strong coffee. "Sit, sit," he said, gesturing to a leather chair. "Coffee?" "No, thank you, Mr. Thornton." "Thaddeus, please. After all these years," he sat behind his massive desk. "Now, the Cedar Hills house. I remember that closing. You were so proud, and so insistent on putting it in your boy's name. Dominic, wasn't it?" "Dominic," I confirmed. He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "And I was insistent on something else. Don't tell me. You're here about the life estate clause?" My heart leaped. He remembered. "I remember," I said. You told me it was just in case. You said you'd seen too many good sons turn bad when money was involved. Thaddeus nodded grimly, and I remember what you said. Not my Dominic, Mr. Thornton. He's a good boy. He was, I said, my voice thick. Or I thought he was. Mr. Thornton, you were right to insist. The old lawyer's face hardened. He leaned forward, all business. Tell me everything, Elias, from the beginning. And don't leave a single detail out. I talked for an hour. Thaddeus Thornton just listened, his pen scratching notes on a yellow legal pad. I told him about the pension check. Every month, $3,800 handed over like tribute. I told him about the comments, the musty smell, the loud TV. I told him about the chili, the humiliation, the suggestion I move in with Clarissa. I told him what I overheard in the garden, the dream closet, the plan to move Brenda Stone in. I told him about Clarissa's failed visit and how Talia was painting me as senile. I told him about the tape measure, and then I told him about the recorder, about Talia finding it, destroying it, and mocking me. When I finished, Thaddeus was silent for a long moment. He just stared at his notes. She's thorough, he finally said, his voice quiet. And cruel, destroying the evidence. She thinks she has you, Elias. Your word, the confused old man, against hers. She did think that, I said. I reached into my suit pocket. I pulled out the small USB drive and placed it on his desk. Thaddeus looked at the drive, then at me. A slow smile spread across his face. Elias Horton, you sly old dog. He took the drive, plugged it into his computer, and put on his headphones. He listened. I watched his face. His smile faded, his eyebrows furrowed, his knuckles turned white as he gripped his pen. When the audio finished, he took off the headphones and looked at me. His eyes were cold with anger. The old man will be at Clarissa's by the end of the month. His room is all yours. He quoted Talia's words back to me. That's the one, I said. Mr. Horton, Thaddeus said, his voice pure steel. This is more than a breach of contract. This is malicious. This is elder abuse. That life estate clause we put in, it's your shield. But it's also a sword. What do you mean? The clause states you have the right to quiet enjoyment of the property, free from harassment, for the rest of your natural life. Her actions, her plots, her threats, she hasn't just breached it, she's shattered it. He stood up and began to pace. We are not just going to file an injunction to make her stop. We are not just going to enforce your right to stay. That's not good enough. You'll live in a war zone. He stopped and pointed a long, bony finger at me. We are going to sue for a full and complete reversal of the property transfer. We are going to take your house back. Is that possible? I whispered. The deed was a deed of gift. The gift was conditional. The condition was your life estate. They violated the condition. The gift is void. We are going to petition the court to revert the title back to its rightful owner. He smiled, a grim, thin smile. Email, the arrogance of the young. She destroyed the recorder, but never even thought about the file. She's about to get a very expensive education, Elias. What do I do? You go home. You say nothing. You be the same quiet, confused old man. Let her think she's won. Let her get the painters lined up. And in about 3 days, a process server is going to knock on that door and hand your son and daughter-in-law a lawsuit they never saw coming. The day of the hearing was cold. A sharp November wind whipped at my suit as I walked up the steps of the Fulton County Courthouse. Thaddeus was waiting for me inside, his ancient leather briefcase in his hand. "You ready, Elias?" "I'm ready," I said. We sat on the hard wooden bench. 10 minutes later, they arrived. Dominic, in his best salesman suit, looking pale and nervous, and Talia. She was dressed to kill. An expensive black dress, high heels, her hair perfect. She looked like she was going to a business meeting, not a court hearing about to be evicted. She radiated arrogance. She saw me and her eyes widened in surprise. Then she saw Thaddeus, and her expression flickered. A tiny crack in the armor. "Dad?" Dominic said, approaching me. "What is this? Who is this man? What are you doing?" "Take your seats, Mr. Horton," Thaddeus said, his voice carrying. "The judge will be out shortly." Talia pulled Dominic back. "Don't talk to him, Dominic. He's clearly confused. This is some ambulance chaser he found." Their lawyer, a kid who looked barely out of law school, hurried in, his tie crooked. Sorry, traffic." "All rise," the bailiff called. We stood. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, entered and sat. "Case 2025 CV 381, Horton vs. Horton. A petition for reversal of deed based on breach of a life estate clause. Mr. Thornton, you may begin." Thaddeus stood. He was no longer a frail old man. He was a lion. He laid it all out. The 40 years of work, the cash purchase, the deed of gift, the love. Then he laid out the abuse, the pension, the insults, the plot, the plan for the closet. "It's his word against ours, Your Honor," Talia's young lawyer squeaked. "Mr. Horton is an elderly man, and he's confessed to being confused." "Confused?" Thaddeus said, his voice soft. "Is that so? Your Honor, I would like to play a recording for the court. A recording my client made in his own home." Talia went white. She grabbed Dominic's arm. He couldn't have... "Permission granted," the judge said, her eyes fixed on Talia. Thaddeus plugged the USB drive into the court's audio system. He hit play. Talia's voice filled the courtroom, clear as a bell. "I promise, don't worry, Mom. The old man will be at Clarissa's by the end of the month. His room is all yours." The silence that followed was deafening. Dominic looked like he was going to be sick. He stared at his wife, his mouth open. Talia's lawyer was shuffling his papers. His face beat red. "Mrs. Horton," the judge said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Is that your voice on the recording?" Talia just stared, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. "Mrs. Horton," the judge repeated. "I asked you a question." Talia's young lawyer stood up, fumbling. "Your Honor, we object. That recording, it was made without my client's consent." "In a two-party consent state, you might have a point, Counselor," Thaddeus cut in smoothly. "However, in Georgia, you only need the consent of one party to a conversation. My client, Mr. Horton, was in his own home, and he was the one who consented to the recording." The judge nodded. "Objection overruled. Answer the question, Mrs. Horton." Talia looked at Dominic. She looked at me, and something inside her snapped. The cool, calculating mask shattered, and the venom beneath poured out. She leapt to her feet. "Yes, it's my voice! So what?" she shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "He sits there in my house, doing nothing. He smells. His TV is too loud. He's a burden." "Talia, sit down," Dominic hissed, pulling at her arm. "No!" she screamed, ripping her arm away. "It's our house. The deed is in my husband's name. We have the right to decide who lives there. We've been supporting him for 3 years, and I am sick of it. I want my closet. I want my mother in my house. He's just a stubborn, senile old man who should be grateful we didn't put him in a home." Her lawyer had his head in his hands. Dominic was frozen, his face ashen. The judge just watched her, her expression unreadable. She let Talia rant for another 30 seconds, her voice echoing in the shocked courtroom. Finally, the judge picked up her gavel. She didn't slam it. She just tapped it. Once. "That's enough, Mrs. Horton." The quietness of her voice cut through Talia's hysteria. Talia stopped, panting, her eyes wild. "You will sit down. You will be silent, or I will have the bailiff remove you and hold you in contempt." Talia, her chest heaving, slowly, sat down. She was trembling with rage. She had just handed us the case. Judge Evans stared at Talia for a full minute. She adjusted her glasses, then looked down at the documents Thaddeus had submitted. "Mr. Thornton," the judge said, "the life estate clause is ironclad. It guarantees your client the right to peaceful and undisturbed residency. Mrs. Horton's own testimony, let alone the recording, confirms a coordinated, malicious campaign of harassment to drive him from his home." She looked at Talia and Dominic. "What you have done is frankly appalling. You have taken a gift, a home, paid for by this man's life's work, and you have spat on it. You have subjected him to humiliation and abuse in an attempt to steal the very room he slept in for your own vanity." Talia started to speak, but her lawyer put a hand on her arm, and she subsided, glaring. "The court finds that the conditions of the deed of gift have been definitively and irreparably breached," the judge continued. "The life estate has been violated. Therefore, Mr. Elias Horton, the original grantor, has two options." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Option 1, the judge said, is that the court can enforce the life estate. I can issue a permanent restraining order against you, Mrs. Horton. I can order you and your husband to pay damages, and your father-in-law will continue to live in that house, and you will not be able to so much as look at him sideways." She paused. "Option 2 is the complete reversal of the original deed of gift. The gift is rendered void. The title reverts to Mr. Horton. It becomes his house again, free and clear, as if the transfer 10 years ago never happened." She looked at me. Her expression was no longer severe. It was kind. "Mr. Horton," she said, "the choice is yours." The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Talia was staring at me, her eyes burning with hate. She knew she had lost. Now it was just a matter of how badly. Dominic. Dominic was looking at me for the first time. Not as an obstacle, not as a burden, but as his father. His face was a wreck of shame and terror. He knew what I was about to do. I thought about Alara. I thought about her roses. I thought about the 40 years I spent on that bus. I thought about living in that house under option 1. With them. With her. Living in a prison, protected by a piece of paper, but still a prison. Waking up every day to the sight of the woman who tried to destroy me. Waking up every day to the son who let her. No, I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my voice was not. I buttoned my suit jacket. I straightened my tie. I looked directly at Dominic. "Your Honor," I said, my voice clear and strong, ringing through the room. "I've lived in that house for 3 years as a prisoner. I won't live there one more day as a warden." I turned to the judge. "I choose the second option. I request the complete and total return of the property." I looked back at my son. "I want my house back." "Dad! No!" Dominic surged to his feet, his chair scraping loudly. Dad, please, we can fix this. I'll make her stop. We'll pay you back. Please, don't do this. It's done, Dominic, I said, my voice cold. Talia was just staring into space, her face pale and slack. She had finally, truly understood what she had done. The judge raised her gavel. So ordered, she said. The reversal is granted. The property at 450 Cedar Hills Drive returns to the estate of Mr. Elias Horton. The current occupants, Mr. and Mrs. Dominic Horton, have 15 days to vacate the premises. She banged the gavel. The sound was like a cannon shot. It was over. I had won. The 15 days were tense. I stayed in my room. They stayed in theirs. The house was a tomb. On the final day, a Saturday, the moving truck arrived. I sat in the living room, in my favorite chair, drinking coffee. I just watched. Talia was a ghost. She didn't speak. She didn't look at me. She just directed the movers, her face pale and pinched, loading boxes of expensive shoes, designer bags, and kitchen gadgets, all the things my pension had paid for. The movers took the dining room table where I'd been humiliated. They took the living room sofa where I was never allowed to sit. Then they went into my old room, Talia's dream closet. They took the bed, the dressers. All I had left in there was my framed uniform and my box of Alara's pictures. I'd moved them out myself. When the truck was almost full, Dominic approached me. He was twisting his hands. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 weeks. Dad, he said, his voice cracking. Dad, I'm sorry. I looked up at him. My son, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, the man who had watched his wife try to make me homeless. Sorry for what, Dominic? I asked, my voice flat. Sorry for letting her? Sorry for agreeing with her? Sorry you got caught? I never wanted this, he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. I didn't know how to... She's what? I stood up. I was an old man in a suit, but in that moment I felt 10 feet tall. She's what, a force of nature? No, she's just a bully. And you were too weak to stand up to her. You were too weak to stand up for your own father. What are we going to do? He pleaded. We have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I said. This wasn't an accident, Dominic. It was a choice. You watched her treat me like garbage for 3 years. You said my room was wasted. You chose a closet over your father. So now you can go live in one. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Dominic, get in the car! Talia shrieked from the driveway. Let's go! Leave him! He looked at me one last time, his face desperate. Dad. I just shook my head. He turned, his shoulders slumped, and walked out the door for the last time. I watched him get into the passenger seat. Talia sped away, not even looking back. I was alone, in my house. I stood in the empty living room for a long time. The silence was absolute, but the house wasn't mine anymore. It was tainted. Every room held a bad memory. The dining room of the chili, the garden of the phone call, my own bedroom, measured and catalogued for destruction. I couldn't stay. I called Thaddeus. Sell it, I said. Are you sure, Elias? I'm sure. I didn't fight for the walls, Thaddeus. I fought for the right to choose. The house sold in a week. The Cedar Hills market was hot. I walked away with a check for $750,000. I wasn't a rich man. I was just a free one. I took the money and I broke it down. I wasn't stupid. Not anymore. I bought a condo, a beautiful 2-bedroom place on the 10th floor, overlooking Garland Park. It cost me $300,000. It's bright. It's clean. It's all mine. The remaining $450,000? I went right back to Thaddeus. I want to set up a trust, I told him, for my grandchildren, Damien and Kira. That's a generous thing, Elias, he said. It's the right thing, but there's a condition. They can't touch a penny of it until they are 25 years old. Not 21. 25. Old enough to be free of their mother. Old enough to understand what this money means. And for Dominic and Talia? Thaddeus asked, raising an eyebrow. Nothing, I said. Not one red cent. They've had enough of my money. I left them a letter. I left it on the counter of the empty house before I handed over the keys. Dominic and Talia, it said. The house is sold. The money, $450,000, is in a trust for Damien and Kira when they turn 25. I hope Talia's dream closet was worth it. Elias. That was it. I signed my name and walked away. The world is small. News travels. Dominic and Talia couldn't find a house. With no down payment, the house they thought was theirs was gone. And a court judgment on their record. Nobody would give them a loan. They ended up in a cramped, 2-bedroom rental apartment in a bad part of town. And just as Talia had planned, her mother, Brenda Stone, moved in with them. Brenda got her room all right. She got the second bedroom, while Damien and Kira had to share the other. Dominic and Talia slept on a pull-out sofa in the living room. I heard from Clarissa. She heard it from a friend at her church. The arguments are apparently spectacular. Talia blames Dominic for being weak. Dominic blames Talia for being greedy. Brenda blames them both for losing the mansion. Dominic's life at work fell apart. The story got out. The car dealership is a small world. The other salesmen, the mechanics, they knew. They'd see him and whisper, "That's the guy. Kicked his own father out for a closet." His sales tanked. His boss, who knew me from the old transit union days, called him in. "Dominic," he said, "your father is a good man. What you did, I don't know if I can trust a man who would do that to his own family." He wasn't fired, but he was sidelined. No good leads, no floor time. Talia, who had lived like a queen on my pension, now had to get a job. A real job. She's a receptionist at a dentist's office. She can't afford her expensive clothes or her lattes. She's miserable. And I'm not. I'm sitting on my new balcony. It's 10 p.m. I'm in my bathrobe, drinking coffee and listening to Sam cook. As loud as I want. My new life is quiet. It's peaceful. I wake up when I want. I make what I want for breakfast. I walk in Garland Park every single day. I met some guys there, a couple of old-timers like me, a retired mechanic and a former postman. We play dominoes under the big oak tree. They know my story. They just nod. They've seen it all. "You did right, Elias," they say. "A man's got to have his dignity." But the best part is Saturdays. Around noon, my buzzer rings. I don't even have to ask who it is. I buzz them in. A minute later, there's a pounding on my door. I open it, and 2 small bodies slam into me. "Grandpa!" Damien and Kira. They take the bus. They sneak away. They tell their parents they're going to the library. "Hey, my champions," I say, hugging them tight. "You hungry? I was just thinking about making some chili." "Yes!" Kira yells, running inside. They're here for 3 hours. We talk. I tell them stories about Alara. I show them my old transit photos. They don't have to be quiet. They can laugh. Last week, Damien, who's 12 now and getting serious, sat on my sofa. "Grandpa?" he asked. "Mom says you were mean. She says you stole our house." I sat down next to him. I put my hand on his shoulder. I didn't steal anything, Damien, I said. That house was always mine. Your mom and dad, they thought they could treat me like an old piece of furniture. They wanted to throw me out so your mom could have a bigger closet. A closet? He asked, his eyes wide. A closet. So I had to remind them. I had to teach them that old people have dignity, that we deserve respect. I didn't do it to be mean, son. I did it to teach them that dignity is not disposable. I did it so you and Kira would grow up knowing the difference. He was quiet for a long time. Then he just nodded. I'm glad you did, Grandpa. I like this place better. It smells good. It smells like coffee, I said, smiling. They left a little while ago. I'm back on the balcony. The sun is warm. I look at the picture of Ilara I keep on my new mantle. Well, Ilara, I whisper, I finally did it. I finally stood up for myself. I defended my dignity. I pick up my coffee cup. I'm 71 years old. I'm a widower. I'm a former bus driver. And for the first time in a long, long time, I am a free man. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.